What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful individuals? It is another episode of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here to find folks for a little bit of LCK power rankings heading into 2026. And I gotta say, across the board, all 10 teams, this feels like the most changes, roster swaps with some players that we've maybe had in an off season. Even if the Guma to Hanwha is, the headliner, there maybe weren't any other insane moves, but really just small moves and starting five changes across the board.
I think the impact of the changes that we have seen will be of the highest magnitude that we have seen in the LCK in quite a few years. And the shifting of the landscape, yes, not, outside of the Gumayushi move aren't as significant, but still I think the added combination of them when you go through all of the squads, and we're going to look through ahead to how we're feeling about them heading into this year, it's absolutely going to be a lot of changes, and it is not a way too early power ranking because guess what? Caspa Cup is right around the corner. It might not mean as much as everything else that will be on the official schedule next year, but this still is, to me, the unofficial start of the very next year.
And we're starting with the lone squad that didn't make a change to their starting five. We're talking about GenG, and yeah, why would you make a change if you can bring back all five of these members? Still looking for something to prove? Not necessarily domestically. They've dominated the LCK for 3+ years at this point, but all the guys running it back, buying into what's going on there. The only change, and a significant change, is Ryu coming in as head coach to replace Kim. And I mean, the drafting was the main issue you heard a lot of the players talk about for GenG at Worlds.
I think it's enough for people to be hopeful that that will be an aspect that you can see change, evolve, and grow over time with this new direction for the GenG organization with Ryu as the head, as that coach. I think when you're talking about a team, again, we kind of had the same type of feelings and talk about it in the LEC about some of these squads returning with that same lineup and where you're building off of and whatnot. It's different when you achieve and are at that caliber that GenG has been able to be at for multiple years now. It really is do or die in the international tournaments, and I think this group absolutely has got to have that mentality of do or die, put up or shut up. We got to get it done with this group together, or it's absolutely not going to be this group all together ever again type of situation.
Almost wishing for adversity within the LCK to grow as a team throughout before they're hitting those world championships, not going on 20 series long win streaks where it's harder to learn when you're winning so much. And that's just the curse of being so successful domestically for GenG. Number 2 on the list is guilty of being successful internationally. And we've talked about the inverse, the yang to the yin of GenG. That is T1. Coaching staff is running it back, obviously. Pay's coming in for Guma, the only change, and it's a big one, but AD carry is always the role we talk about being the most easy to plug and play a new player, and when it's somebody that is the caliber of Pay's, still feeling quite good about T1.
And you're feeling even better when you do get that extra boost of looking through some of the highlights, some of the stories of last year that Pay's had to go through with JDG, and how that should make him a stronger individual option to join this T1 dynasty. And yes, the dynasty is still there with Owner, Faker, and Kyria. Might not be the same as when we talked about it with Zeus and Guma, but I still think that there's quite a lot of positives when you're looking at this team. I think another year incorporating Doran into T1, into how things work with Faker as his mid laner, is another thing to look at for positives and growth with this T1 roster. But of course, it's all going to pale in comparison to the big story of Gumayushi leaving the organization, Pay's stepping on in. And again, this isn't Pay's stepping on in on simply just a one and done, prove it and that's it. This is a commitment, a 3-year commitment to Pay's. And yes, I understand of all the organizations, a T1 could simply find a way out financially or whatever. But making that move to Pay's and signing him that long term, having his connections with Kyria, I think this really is more so a full replacement in comparison to the way that you could look at Doran, say, in the top side and still have a little bit of some questions.
And again, Pays is going from Joao to Kyria. Joao to Kyria as your support. So we're going to have the unstoppable force that is Pays pentakills and the immovable object that is Owner denying pentakills. Something's got to break this year.
One of them's going to come through more times than not. I think the real one that we're going to have to keep an eye on occasionally is, of course, you don't steal one from Faker. That's the guy that you really don't want to be taking them away from on T1. Can keep that one calm and collected. I think, yes, this T1 going to have some question marks without such an important, key, crucial member that Gumayusi has been throughout this dynasty run, these world championships. But very excited to see Pays get his opportunity with this T1 lineup.
And also a guy we have seen step up on some of the biggest stages. Pays, much like Guma, who always has that clutch factor. Rounding out the top three is, of course, where Guma is headed with Hanwha Life. And again, this thing, the roster looks amazing on paper, right? Guma and Viper, you're comparable, just kind of different intangibles that they bring to a squad. And again, I'm harping on the Kanavi for Peanut replacement. It's been a while since Kanavi's been in the LCK, since he was loaned by Griffin in like 2018, 2019. He's been dominating, picking up MVPs in the LPL, but is another guy who's just a mechanical god that can hands diff the opposition what this Hanwha Life roster needs? Or is it that shot caller veteran who can take a step back that was Peanut?
And I think I'll still fall into that category, into that camp of people that think that having this strategy that would come through from Peanut and his ability to help facilitate in those avenues is the advantage, is the path that you need specifically from this jungle position when you are fielding a roster with Zeus, with Zeka, now Gumayusi joining from that bottom lane. That would be one of the avenues I could accept when you're looking at this one and trying to talk about where the Hanwha Life fits in compared to the Hanwha Life of last year. And is it an upgrade? Is it a side grade? Whatever situation. I think actually, yeah, the raw skill and some of the champions that you can more so lean towards with Kanavi could be an advantage, could be an angle that can be utilized by this Hanwha Life team. But I think out of the gates, an early initial impression, a way too early, a Kespa Cup early type of power rankings, I'm still going to be cautious with this squad and put them behind the big titans like a GenG and a T1.
And again, this does just speak to the LCK being absolutely ridiculously stacked, that you see this Hanwha squad and you're like, yep, third, and it like you can't put them ahead of GenG returning and T1 fresh off a world championship, getting a guy like Pays on the roster. So absolutely they could be contenders. We'll see if the gears click together for this Hanwha squad. In the 4 zone, we're talking about, I feel like we always put them here. We always build up the hype. We're ready for Dplus Kia, and heading into this year, the offseason, it's just the bot lane that gets a change and the coaching staff. CV Max comes in for Bengi, but Smash and Career going to full youth energy, as this is the first proper starting positions for both these guys. I'm not counting Smash sending Guma to the bench for a little bit as the de facto starters. Career was the finals MVP in the LCK Challenger scene for BNK Youth. So Showmaker going the Faker route of having 4 youngins around him and channeling his inner Splinter to guide them.
I love this. I love this for DK. And I think that this has been kind of dabbled with, right, with how we've seen things go in the top lane in the jungle for this Dplus Kia team trying to retool. This really is the full send, I think, in that regard, down that avenue for this DK team with Showmaker as that veteran that you are keeping and building around and utilizing for this team. And I think for us that have been Showmaker fans, have been wanting the best out of him in the organization, this is an avenue, an experiment that I think a lot of us can get behind as far as what you're going to see. And again, when you look at that experience, at those young players like Smash in the bottom lane, I think that is absolutely one of the avenues that you can find the hope for this team. I don't think anybody is going out and immediately throwing, yeah, well, it's a Gumayusi level of ADC. No, you can't do that to someone like Smash immediately. But you saw enough good things during the time with T1 and in the challenger scene to say that this is someone who is ready for this type of opportunity.
And potentially, again, very early, don't have enough games for Smash, but the highest ceiling AD carry that Damwon has had ever. Like, I don't know who else. Deft came in for a little, but we knew what his ceiling was. It's kind of always been the suspect position on this Dplus roster, and I know losing Barrel, the general, the shot caller, it didn't really work out. So I'm excited to see a guy like Career get that opportunity. Siwoo's only 18, and we've already seen this guy contend with some of the best top laners. And Lucid, let's face it, we've talked about him at times behind Owner and Canyon, and that's it in the LCK.
He has been one of these options that continues to grow, continues to improve, continues to find more value for his squad. Has been one of the things that you've seen from his career. And again, that's why I'm all on board this type of youth movement, this, copy pasta of the T1 Faker and the Young Guns type of movement, because I really think it can work with the pieces, the young pieces that were already there on Dplus Kia. I've got faith in my guy Showmaker in the mid lane. As long as he's having fun, he might not be having a lot of fun with Zaheen out there on Summoner's Rift. He could be having some fun with some of these changes, the support, the quest items for the mid lane. I think that could be a good one for him. But then you add in the excitement of this young bottom lane coming on through and the potential that they have. Yes, you can get on board with this one. This is absolutely one of the squads where the ranking could absolutely fluctuate throughout the year, knowing that inexperience that will be alongside Showmaker. But I'm going to choose to go glass half full here and see this working out.
You can go glass half full or empty when we get to the 5 spot, 1 game away from the World Championship. KT Rolster, who the Kespa Cup roster might primarily be academy guys surrounded by BDD, and who knows, they might stick with that at times throughout this split. But the top side is returning, Perfect Cuz and BDD. It's the bot lane that got the change, and for all the criticism that Dom got, he wasn't single-handedly costing them many games, and we have seen aiming do that several times for Dplus Kia. You lose Peter for Ghost and Palu, and I don't think most people are calling the bot lane a big upgrade for KT.
No, this was not it, and this is not what the BDD fan base was asking for from KT for the situation after the way things played out at the World Championship. As you said, 1 game away, 1 nexus from being the ultimate winner of it all at the end of the day. Not how things played out for KT Rolster. They got to pick themselves back up, and picking themselves back up is that change in that bottom lane. And yeah, I'm not going to sign off on this one. I cannot give this one my approval or find the positive in this one. I think that what we saw from Dom, and I was harsh on Dom throughout the year when things were bad, we saw more than enough in that bounce back and in that run to the World Championship that you would say at the very least who you have to be replaced by has to be at a higher level. You have to be going for other aspects to just swap out with aiming. And aiming, as you said, where there have been situations where, sure, he maybe has outperformed someone like Dom, but he's just been as guilty as Dom has been for costing his team with mistakes, with bad positioning and situations to lose games that you are not already the loser of situation. So I don't see this one as a positive for KT Rolster. This is not an angle that I like to take very often when we're looking ahead and looking at teams, but I'm not sold at all by this offseason.
At the very least, Score is also coming back as head coach, so that's a check mark for them. But yes, it did feel like there was some extra magic around them last year, and it feels hard-pressed to see that being replicated. But still a conservative 5 spot for them. Just behind KT, you got the other squad that is basically bringing back the same starting 5, and that is BNK Fear X. Obviously, Diabla signing a contract with them, which was the big get. Thought he would leave in the offseason, but the only real changes are Lyra replacing Ryu as the head coach. We'll see how vital he was to this squad. And then Daystar, it looks like this young guy from the Challenger seed might be competing with Vikla for that starting mid lane spot.
And this is an exciting opportunity, I think, when you're talking about this squad mostly returning, right, as you lay out. But I think what they showed us last year are the glimpses, are the heartbeats of a squad that is looking to level up, looking to be on that playoff bubble, and not just get into the playoff bubble, but be one of these ones that makes life difficult, makes it a challenge to get through them for these upper squad teams. That's what you want to see from this BNK and that next step this year. And I think, again, a big part of that is going to be the continued development of Diablo down in the bottom lane and getting that contract, securing him to stay here, stay in this organization, not go elsewhere on big contracts, looking for the world spots. That was a big get for him, but you got to continue with that development individually. Lyra, I'm all about giving him the pass on here. He's our NA brethren of the past, so I got to give him a little bit of that extra well wishes here for this project with BNK.
One of the OG Korean imports coming over to the LCS, now getting his role to shine as that head coach. From one mid lane battle tryout to another, when you're talking about Nongshim heading into this, and we were praising Calyx so much. Everybody was last year, the development. This guy's only 18. And then Nongshim decides to sign Scout in the offseason. Fresh off far and away his worst season in the LPL. He returns to the LCK for the first time since 2016 when he was on the SKT B team. So very curious to see who actually is getting the majority of the starts, because Calyx is still in this organization. And I mean, I wonder if Scout continues to play like he did on JDG. I'm throwing Calyx in.
Yeah, I'm going to be cautious with this one. I think it could be a scenario where maybe you're bringing Scout in on more of a mentorship type of one, where there will be opportunities for him to get starts, to play games, but also more so in that, mentorship, veteran type of role to help facilitate Calyx's growth could be the one thing that I would give them the sign-off for, because otherwise it seems like a massive misread of where your organization is and what step it needs to take in order to continue to improve, to find a way to be more competitive and work your way towards one of these playoff spots in the LCK. I don't see this as that avenue for it, as you laid out. Arguably, and I think statistically, the worst year of Scout's career in the LCK. I mean, LPL, and to step back now into the LCK, an LCK that certainly hasn't gone down since he was last year. It's only gone up as far as that level of competition and play and what is going to be there for a playoff spot. I'm not buying in on this one. I think Nongshim as well was one of the teams that did maybe overperform throughout a majority of the year and eventually fell right back down to where they ended up being and slotting in power-wise in the LCK. These were not the moves that were going to help shake that up or insert yourself back into that playoff conversation for me.
Yeah, and, Taeyu coming for Jiwoo. Sponge replaces Gideon. This is a mix of veteran and a little bit of youth, but even those guys have been around for a while. But Kingin and Lahens were obviously the focal points last year. We'll see if these guys can find a flash of vintage magic for veterans that have been around a while. Behind them, we're talking about the Bros. Duke is coming back as head coach, but other than that, it's an entirely new starting five. Morgan's over to Team Liquid, so Casting is the de facto starter here. This is the two-time Challenger Scene MVP. We saw glimpses of him when he was subbing in this roster carousel for KT last year, and then it's Gideon, Fisher, and Teddy as the lone veteran on this squad.
Oh, man. You told me 4 years ago Teddy was going to be on the Bros? Oh. What's going on here?
He's on a new squad every year, it feels like.
Understandable at this point in his career, and I still think someone that can give you those superstar level of performances, they're just fewer and farther between than they have been in the past for someone, and especially too far and few in between for someone that is going to be considered an elite level in the LCK and what you're going to have to go up against. And unfortunately, I think that's what you're missing on this Bro squad, is missing that elite talent. And I mean that in as far as what you're going to get right now, because I think when you look at this Bro team, you can see avenues for players to develop into that type of talent. I don't see that in this year, in this time frame and window for the Bros right now. But I think, again, going with a whole brand new look, really with this refresh, I don't think there's a better organization than the Bros that could go for this full look refresh, full send on trying to change it up on how things have gone here for their history.
And a squad like DRX is doing a very similar thing. Andal and Rich are coming back. That's returning. Okay, Jibu replaces Teddy. But the exciting one, and even at the 9 spot in the LCK, there's still something to be excited about for these teams. And for DRX, it's Vincenzo coming in the jungle. He was Jungler of the Year in the Challenger scene and regular season MVP. Got some T1 experience under his belt on that Academy squad, and he's kind of one of the rookies in the whole league to watch out for this year.
And he is really, really that standout light that is shining on this DRX squad when you get this territory of an LCK power ranking. And again, not that this isn't a bad squad in general, just in what you know is going to be your scheduling, what you're having to go up against on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday type of scheduling in the LCK. But I think for Vincenzo, this is certainly a good enough opportunity, good enough starting spot to showcase some of that talent, showcase some of that pedigree that you're talking about. Got to see it here with this DRX team, and certainly going to be an open playing field for him on his side as far as putting your touches, putting your influence on the game.
At least he's got some veteran solo laners in Rich and Yukal. Last squad on the list, to the probably surprise of nobody, is the DN Freecs, who had a 23% win rate in rounds 3 to 5 of the LCK. But surely the world finalist bot lane of Dom and Peter is enough to save this team?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so at this point. I will give them the credit of they're probably going to be better than what you got out of Berserker down in the bottom lane last year, right? It's got to be something more than that, and I think that is about as low a bar as you probably can set in the LCK. But I got the best of wishes for Dom and Pete. I think they are certainly guys that maybe got the raw end of the deal compared to their contributions and power level for KT and where they got to. Again, one game away, one Nexus from world champions. To find themselves at this end of the spectrum and all the way down here, certainly not what would have been right, quote unquote. But you got your opportunity against everybody in the LCK still to prove them wrong, prove the doubters, and get yourself into a better position. I think that's the angle that you have to be looking at this one on the DN Freecs.
And it feels a little different for Peter because he's still doing his career, kind of establishing himself. That, yeah, it feels like a shame that they got demoted to the DN Freecs. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Absolute beauties. Thanks for hanging out.